Next is the 9.2 is the report to council introduction and inclusion and equity committee for the township.
To get things started, I would be happy to volunteer, and I would also recommend that Stacey Whittington be put on the committee. I had spoken to her previously about it, since she was the one that brought the pride flag issue to our attention. I think it would be fitting, and she has experience on these types of committees. So that's my position on that.
I'd just like to ask the deputy mayor, if the county is already putting together this committee, why is it required, or why do you think it's necessary that we have one? And this is a very large committee. I mean, we're looking at, and it says support staff, so this is going to cost the township, even though you've got that the rest of it is on a volunteer basis. But this is a very large, I'm looking at up to 13 people, which is the size of our township. I mean, our economic development committee wasn't this large.
No, that's why I said that some things will change. Those numbers will obviously have to change, because those are, like I said, and I guess I didn't explain it well enough. Those were copied from the county. So that's the size of the county committee. As for why Amaranth needs one, that's a great question, because there are other municipalities that are piggybacking on the county's initiative. I think the county's initiative is a great idea. I think that recent developments within the township make it obvious that we need some form of committee here. If nothing else, just for education purposes, I would love to see a committee that is, if nothing else, educating on a continual basis, different cultures and different backgrounds. So I think it's something we need to do. I think it can be done with very little support staff, not 3. And I apologize for that being confusing. That's my position. Yeah.
Well, because again, I'm on the steering committee where we're trying to find ways within the county to combine the roles so that we're not having redundant committees. Is there no way that we could have, the county should have something anyway that is going to reach out to the individual townships? Again, I think that it's just duplicating an effort that's being put out by the county, and that you and anyone else who chooses to should volunteer on that committee, and then ensure that each township has some kind of educational process through this committee, as opposed to each township perhaps even having their own committee, because that's what happens. And we're trying to combine things through the county, not create individual. And
No,
so, anyway, yeah, go ahead.
I think that's a very valid point. And I'm not a fan of duplicating. That's why I supported the economic development going to the county. And it's just simply because of in light of recent events at the township, I think this is something that's needed. It may be that we started up and the committee decides that yes, it is duplicating, and let's just fold. But I would like to see the initiative started. There's going to be minimal cost, and I think it's very needed.
My thoughts are very similar, and you've got similar thoughts. I guess that if the county has this initiative, my question is whether we could secure membership on the county committee, so that we have direct feedback from that committee. The advantage with the county committee would be that it draws from an even broader base, which would make it an even more enlightening source of information a great source of information. What would get cumbersome is we have a committee that then has to attend the other committee meetings, and it becomes there's a lot of people running around as opposed to giving us fairly direct and timely feedback, which is what I would like. I would be far more comfortable if we could secure membership on the county committee, and that to me would seem like the best course of action. I understand where you're coming from on Amaranth, and
I don't understand the hesitance to try. I don't think it's going to be a cost, and it's volunteer basis. I won't be claiming meeting expenses for time on the committee. So really, I think the costs are negligible. It's volunteer driven. If nobody volunteers to be on it, then there's no committee. So I think that there's a desire for this. In terms of the county committee, the councillors were already selected, and the mayor and myself were not one of the 3 members selected, and I have no insight as to who the other public members are. I don't even know if they've been selected yet. So I would hope that they have somebody from Amaranth on there, but I can't say for sure.
is there any chance the county could be approached to have ex officio members who take part at the county level? That would seem like a very good use of resources. And the fact that you're not claiming for the meetings doesn't mean that the expenses are not entitled. And right now, the draft, in fact, shows 3 councillors as being part of the committee, which I don't believe that'll be able to stay, because that makes, in fact, meetings.
Yeah, that's correct.
Still, the mileage and expenses, whether you personally claim them or not, they are due to whoever ultimately serves on that committee.
So, okay, so is the concern cost?
No.
It's cost, it's efficiency, it's use of, it's also, I don't believe, I have a concern that it's not doing the best thing for Dufferin County, because Amaranth was not the only township that wound up in a bit of a ball over the flag protocol. In fact, with only, I believe, 2 municipalities actually flying that flag, we all stand to learn. I believe the county committee should have an ex officio member, ex officio representative from each municipality, that we in fact get our act together across Dufferin County and not just within Amaranth. I believe everybody needs to get their act together.
Well, okay, well, in terms of cost, I'd be willing to work into the motion. I will cover the cost, all costs for the remainder of 2020 and all of 2021. We will reimburse the township 100%, so the cost should not be an issue. I strongly believe that this is something that the residents of Amaranth need at the moment, and if it's something that we find is duplicating, is repetitive and not required, then we can decide to fold it at some other point. But it's volunteers. If volunteers are willing to put in their time and there's no cost, I believe we should support it. The terms of reference can say that we want a member ex officio on the county committee, but I very strongly believe that this is required at this time.
Well, along with the group of people that are mentioned here, okay, I wrote in my notes here, we also have a large Dutch population in Amaranth, as well as, I think maybe more so in Amaranth and Luther than the rest of the county. And if you're going to start talking about different people and so on, I don't see why you can't open the gate and let everybody have an input into this thing. Like, no matter what part of Europe or Asia or wherever you're from, and not just the ones that are mentioned here. So
no, I completely agree. And I had the same thought about the large number of Dutch or Swiss in the area, and I thought about the different backgrounds of our staff and how they could participate with some educational activities. So I completely agree that we shouldn't be catering to any one event. And I'll remind you again, those terms of reference were what the county put forward. I'm not saying that the township should adopt them. The township would draft their own, and council would would have input and ultimately pass those terms of reference. So we can make it even more inclusive. That would be wonderful. We can go into the background of the early settlers, the First Nations, and right up to current members. So I don't want to see it limited to any one group. I would love to see it just educate in general. So.
Thank you. Yes, I believe Deputy Mayor sort of answered some of the comments. There is an opportunity here for other groups, not just the ones mentioned, to be identified and included in this discussion. I think we do need to reduce council representation to 2, and I think it should be a volunteer committee so that there is no compensation paid to the members. It's about wanting to have an opportunity to make people aware, to have discussions, to spread the word about what it is that this township might have in the way of issues that we need to address. So I cannot see anything negative about this. It's about educating and growing and learning. And I think that's very important. And to turn our backs and say, no, we don't need to do it here is a misrepresentation of our population.
And nobody said that we didn't need it here. The comment that was made was that county's already got one. So rather than duplicating efforts, it was never stated that it was not required or needed. Never. Okay, however, I am willing to compromise 1 council rep, 3 people volunteering that will come forward to council on occasion, not a regular basis, seeing it somewhere else where it's become a bit of a dog's breakfast. But if this is to go forward, and then as the Deputy Mayor has said, if there is duplication of effort, then it becomes redundant. I will make that compromise.
That's the comment. Go ahead.
I would hope that a friendly amendment would be to include that the requirement for a standalone township committee be revisited either on an annual basis or after 12 months, something that we go back and look, and if it requires a life of its own, so be it. But I would like to know that we're going to actually check that it requires at a point in time that it requires a life of its own as a standalone. So I'm not questioning the requirement. What I'm questioning is whether it has to be a standalone, but I can support giving it a year. And that also will give the committee an incentive to demonstrate its value and why it requires to remain a standalone committee.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful suggestion. I would hope that, being that it's August, maybe we could put that at the end of 2021, the committee can report back to council on its effectiveness and whether or not it needs to continue past 2021. That gives us the rest of this year to set it up and do the terms of reference, and then basically a 12-month period to implement the terms of reference, do education, et cetera. I think that's a wonderful idea. I appreciate the suggestion. And to Councillor Foster's point again, those terms of reference were just for reference. Everything's going to be up for discussion, and we'll come back to council. So the composition and how often that committee comes to council is completely up to ultimately council's decision. So I'm fine with that amendment.
So could I request that this be brought back at our next council meeting with those changes so that we can take a look at it at that point and make a decision then?
Sorry, that the motion come back?
We can have the motion, but the terms.
Oh yeah, definitely. The terms of the process as I envision it would be, let's get buy-in to the committee, and with Miss Whittington and myself would then, as was done at the county when with Alethea O'Hara-Stevenson brought it up. She was the first appointed. Then they appointed council members who were then working on comprising the committee. They did their terms of reference first. I'm saying let's get the committee formed and then do the terms of reference. So we're nowhere near passing a terms of reference. Separate from that, I think that at the next meeting, if we decide to go ahead today with the committee, at the next meeting, we would have to decide composition, how many public, etc. But the terms of reference is something I would hope to have in place by the end of the year, so that, as mentioned, we can spend 2022 doing meaningful work. So sorry, that was a long answer, but I'm hoping to get buy-in today, and then we can move forward with everything else. I think that we need to appoint Stacey Whittington and myself to so that we can take the next steps that are required.
Are you certain that Ms. Whittington will?
Yeah, she is. She's told me that she will. She's on the call and just put her hand up, so I'm assuming she's going to confirm. If you would unmute her. Yeah.
I will, and the mayor step back. So, Stacey, go ahead.
I can confirm that I would like to be a part of the committee.
Thank you for that. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I have be it resolved that council takes steps to create a diversion, equity, and inclusion community advisory committee. That the committee appoints Stacey Whittington and the deputy mayor to form the committee and develop terms of reference. And further, that at the end of 2020, the committee report back to council regarding the viability of the committee.
Right, I think that was going to be 2021.
Oh, sorry. Okay. 2021. Are you okay with that wording, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, I'm fine.
And will you move the motion?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Councillor Little.
Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Yeah, just one quick question. I just want to confirm with Councillor Tijssen that caught the spirit of his friendly amendment. I think it did. I just want to confirm.
Further, that at the end of the 2021, the committee report back to council regarding the viability of the committee.
Of a standalone committee.
Viability of a standalone committee?
Because I'm not questioning the quick committee requirement, whether a standalone township committee. In fact, standalone township committee.
Of course.
I'm not trying to.
Yeah, I'm fine with that wording.
You're fine with that, Deputy Mayor? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so how do you vote, sir?
Yes.
You, Councillor Little, I have that you second. How do you vote?
Yes.
You. Councillor Foster?
Yes.
Councillor Tijssen?
Yes.
Mayor Currie?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion has passed.
Sorry, just one quick comment. I just want to say thanks to everybody on council for the discussion. I think this is a very positive thing for the township, and I appreciate everybody helping out so far. So thanks a lot, everybody.